Before we begin, I want you to notice something. Many people right now feel disoriented, disillusioned, like something they once believed in no longer holds, and yet something deeper is forming beneath that loss. This isn't confusion by accident. This is a cosmic threshold. Today, we're talking about one of the most significant alignments of this decade, the Saturn and Neptune conjunction in true sidereal Pisces, and why it marks the end of illusion and the beginning of embodied faith. Welcome to Nova Luminary Astrology. I am Betsy, a true sidereal astrologer and Reiki master. Here we follow the true sky, aligning with the actual astronomical movement of the cosmos. Today we're exploring the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Pisces, one of the most significant astrological alignments of this decade, a rare 36-year cycle that dissolves illusion and asks us to live what we believe. The exact conjunction will occur on February 20th, 2026 at 11 degrees of Pisces. Now, we have had Saturn and Neptune closely aligned for the past year. Beginning around April 2025 is when the planets began to first align. In June 2025, we had the first closed alignment, and then again during the retrogrades in July and August. However, the exact conjunction will happen on February 20th, and the influence will persist through March 2026. This is a 36-year cycle that marks the dissolution of unsustainable systems, the collapse of illusion, and the demand for embodied truth, spiritually, psychologically, and collectively. This is not about fear. It's about clarity, not about losing faith, but about learning how to live it. So take a breath and settle in, and let's step into this threshold together. Let's begin with the basics. Because this alignment affects everyone, whether or not you follow astrology. Saturn represents structure, boundaries, responsibility, systems, and reality itself. Neptune represents spirituality, dreams, ideals, compassion, illusion, and dissolution. When Saturn and Neptune come together, we are asked one essential question. What do you believe, and can you live it? This is where dreams meet reality, not to destroy the dream, but to see whether it can survive embodiment. Let's talk a little bit about the history of Saturn and Neptune conjunctions. Last Saturn-Neptune conjunction occurred on June 23rd, 1989 at 14 degrees of Sagittarius. That year was marked by the fall of the Berlin Wall, the end of the Cold War, and the collapse of ideological empires, the exposure of belief systems that no longer worked. Sagittarius governs ideologies, philosophies, and global belief structures. Back then, Saturn-Neptune dissolved false narratives, and now the conjunction happens in Pisces. This is not about belief systems alone. This is about faith, morality, emotional truth, spirituality, compassion, and what we have been avoiding beneath the surface. This time, the dissolution is internal and collective. So let's talk about why Pisces changes everything. Pisces is the final sign of the zodiac. It governs surrender, endings, the unseen, the collective unconscious, oceans, air, chemicals, mysticism, and spirituality. A major theme of Saturn and Neptune in Pisces is the dissolution of systems and dreams that are no longer sustainable. Not every dream was meant to survive reality. Some were fantasies, some were coping mechanisms, and some were inherited beliefs that no longer align with our truth. Pisces carries the energy of grace and compassion. It is asking us to let go, not with cynicism, but with compassion. This conjunction at 11 degrees of Pisces also carries its own energetic frequency, and the number 11 is significant as a master frequency number. With Saturn at 11 degrees and Neptune at 11 degrees, we have an 11-11 frequency, and this 11-11 frequency is like a portal. It symbolizes awakening, alignment between spiritual truth and lived reality. It creates a gateway between worlds and the collapse of illusion and the anchoring of consciousness. At 11 degrees Pisces, Saturn-Neptune is asking us to rebuild faith through embodiment, not belief without responsibility, and not structure without compassion, but lived spirituality. The message of this alignment is simple and demanding. What you believe must now be lived. Let's move on to the personal experience. On a personal level, this alignment can feel unsettling. As I was doing research for this alignment, I realized that this alignment is actually very significant for me on a personal level, as I was born between 88 and 89. The last alignment was on June 1989, and therefore if you were born 88, 89, this is especially significant for you. It's almost like you were born to go through this huge initiation, and this alignment is also called the Great Initiation. It does apply to everyone, but I do think it is especially significant for those that were born between those years. You may notice dissolution, loss of certainty, questioning long-held dreams, spiritual fatigue, or a deep longing for meaning that actually works. There are two main shadow expressions here. We have diffusion, which is having too many dreams and no focus. This is influenced by the energy of Neptune. And then we have rigidity, which is clinging to beliefs that no longer fit. And this can be the energy of Saturn. The medicine is discernment. This alignment asks you to choose one dream worth building and release the rest. Faith without form dissolves, and structure without spirit hardens. Now let's talk a little bit about the global implications. As I was doing research, I found that many world leaders were born with Saturn and Neptune conjunct Virgo. And Virgo seeks control, order, purification, and efficiency. Their power is rooted in rigid systems. And now Saturn and Neptune meet in Pisces, the opposite sign. Astrologically, this points to the erosion of authoritarian control, dissolution of rigid hierarchies, and the exposure of moral and spiritual failures. Pisces dissolves what Virgo tried to perfect. And collapse doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like a loss of legitimacy, and therefore we may expect to see changes in major power structures throughout the world. Environmentally, Pisces rules the oceans, air, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, and toxins. This alignment can bring accountability for what has been polluted, externally and internally. Environmental crises like water issues and chemical exposure are not separate from spiritual crises. They are reflections. As we see a rise in spiritual crises, we may also see a rise in environmental issues. Saturn says you must take responsibility for what you have ignored. Okay, now let's talk about some of the significant cosmic alignments during this conjunction. During the conjunction, Saturn and Neptune will be aligned to the fixed star Shiat in the constellation of Pegasus. And Shiat is associated with water, but also with intellect. Shiat is associated with the square of Pegasus and not necessarily the horse. The square symbolizes logic, thinking, intellectual frameworks, and the architecture of belief. The fixed star Shiat represents the love of intellect and the challenge of logic. This is the point where the mind meets what it cannot fully comprehend. Under this alignment, old mental frameworks collapse, certainty dissolves, and logic reaches its limit. It is an initiation. The higher teaching of Shiat is this: not everything real can be proven, and not everything logical is true. On February 20th, we also have Chiron, the moon, and Mercury all in Pisces. This alignment is intensified by multiple bodies in Pisces. We have the moon, which is emotional sensitivity, Mercury, which is intuitive and symbolic thinking. Chiron brings up wounds around faith and belonging. These alignments in Pisces bring up the processing of grief, emotional honesty, reclamation of authentic belief, and the release of inherited spiritual wounds. Chiron asks, what part of your faith needs healing and not fixing? Let's talk about how to work with this alignment. You work with the Saturn and Neptune conjunction by grounding spiritual practices into daily life, choosing fewer dreams but committing deeply, questioning beliefs without abandoning faith, allowing grief without spiritual bypassing, and letting compassion include boundaries. This is not about certainty, it's about integrity. If you remember one thing from this episode, let it be that Saturn Neptune in Pisces is not asking you what you dream of. It is asking you, what are you willing to live? Faith must have form, dreams must now have discipline, and compassion must now have boundaries. The illusions falling away were never meant to carry you forward, but what remains will. Thank you for being here and for taking the time to engage with this transmission. It is about orientation. It is about understanding the larger cycles we are living so we can move through them with awareness, discernment, and integrity. The Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Pisces is not asking for blind belief. It is asking for embodied faith. Faith that is lived through action, responsibility, and compassion. If this video resonated, I invite you to subscribe to Nova Luminary Astrology and share this episode with someone navigating their own threshold. I love to hear from you in the comments, and definitely leave me a comment if there's a specific alignment or stellar topic you'd like me to explore next. This channel exists to help you align with the actual sky and attune to stellar frequencies. And remember your true cosmic blueprint. You were born of stars. Until next time, may your beliefs be honest, your path be grounded, and your light be fully embodied.